Okay, so here we are in section 11.2. We're solving x squared equations. I'm going to give you a plan over here. So when you're solving x squared with an equal sign, here's the game plan. Step 1, get a 0 on the other side. Step 2, try to factor, like with the parentheses. Step 3, or if it won't factor, which is mostly what's going to happen in this section, use the quadratic formula, which is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared, that's b there, minus 4ac all over 2a. So there's the game plan for solving x squared equations. Okay, so step 1, get a 0. We've got a 0. So this is whenever you see x squared with an equal sign. X squared with an equal sign. Get a 0. We've got a 0. Okay, step 2, try to factor. Now how does that factor? Well, we're looking, you know how to do that, right? What two numbers that multiply to be positive 3, add to be minus 4. So I'll do the diamond thing. What multiplies to be 3 adds to be minus 4. What two numbers, what times what multiplies to be 3? 1 and 3. How can they add to be negative 4? Both negative. So that one factors, doesn't it? It factors as x minus 1, x minus 3 equals 0. So remember what you do from there. Try to factor, I should write here, each equal to 0, solve. So step 2, step 1, step 2, step 3. Step 2 is try to factor equal to 0 and each one equals 0 and solve. So then you, right, because if two things are multiplying, they're timesing to equal 0. Either one could be 0, right? If I told you, hey, I'm timesing two things and it's equaling 0. This times this equals 0. Well, that means the first one could be 0 because, if this first one is 0, 0 times anything would be 0. Or the second one could be 0 because, if the second one's 0, anything times 0 is 0. All right, so solve this one. Just jump the 1 over, x is 1. Jump the 3 over, x is 3. 1 or 3. So those are the two answers, 1 or 3. We never had to use the quadratic formula because it factors. Okay, so same thing here. First step, get a 0. We've already got a 0. Second step, factor. So what multiplies to be 9 adds to be 6. Two parentheses. To the diamond method. What multiplies to be 9, positive 9, adds to be positive 6. What times what is 9? 3 times 3. How can they add to be plus 6? Both positive, huh? So this one does factor. It's x plus 3. X plus 3. Okay. So now what do you do from there? If two things are multiplying to equal 0, either the first one could be 0 or the second one could be 0. That's the same thing twice. Jump it over, negative 3. It's going to be the same thing over there, so the answer is just negative 3. Twice, but we don't list it twice. We say the answer is just negative 3. Okay, so on number 3, now things are going to be different on this problem. Remember what step, when you have x squared with an equal sign, step 1 is get a 0. So I'm going to jump this 7 over. So when I do, this will become 8x squared plus 2x minus 7 is 0. So I got a 0 on one side. That's the first step, get a 0. Step 2, try to factor. Now the reason I say try to factor is because these things won't always factor. Honestly, I'm not even going to try this one. With an 8 in the front, those are hard. That would be the slide and divide where you got to take the 8 and slide it to the back and all that. I just don't want to do it. It's going to be easier to just use the quadratic formula at this point. So here we go. It's or the quad. I'll just say quad, and I'll write it over here. What's the quad? Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That's going to be easier than factoring that hard one. So, and a lot of them won't even factor at all. This one may not, I don't even know. So, all right, so now what's the a, b, and c? What is all that stuff? Well, the a is the 8, the number in the front. The b is the next number, the positive 2, and the c is the negative 7. So we ignore the x's. You know, we're not, a, b, and c are just numbers. All right, so here we go. So b is 2, so this is negative b, so negative 2 plus or minus the square root of b squared, 2 squared minus 4 times a, which is 8, times c, which is negative 7, all over 2a, 2 times 8. All right, so what's that? That's negative 2 plus or minus the square root. Let's work this out. So 2 squared is 4. Now use your calculator here. 4 times 8 times 7. What's the sign going to be? We have a negative and a negative, 2 negatives, positive. And now 4 times 8 times 7, whatever that is, 224. My calculator just told me. Over 16, 2 times 8 is 16. Bring it up here. So now we've got negative 2 plus or minus. Now what is, that's going to be 228, right? 224 plus 4 over 16. Now 228 is not square rootable, so I'm going to go over on the side here and break it down. 228 breaks down. 2 goes, I don't know, I know 2 goes in because it ends even. Use your calculator, divide by 2, that's 114, divide by 2 again, what's that, 57, and that's it. So, all right, so that means that this is minus 2 plus or minus the square root of 2 times 2 times 57. I don't think 57 breaks down any further. So that's the 228. 228 breaks down as 257. And so you know what square roots do now, right? We had a whole chapter on that. 2 2's in, 1 2 out. And that 2 that comes out right to the front of the root. It doesn't go past the plus or minus or anything else. It just immediately to the front of the root. There goes the 2. Those are gone. So now we have minus 2 plus or minus 2 root 57 over 16. Okay, are we done? Well, there's one more thing. When these 3 numbers are all divisible by the same number, when they can all be divided by, in this case, 2, right? 2 goes into all 3 of those. Then you need to do it. If any one of those didn't work, like say there was nothing here, which really means there's a 1, then I couldn't do it because it has to be all or nothing. Because remember, plus or minuses are like glue, Costco glue, gluing them together, making them all or nothing. So if there was nothing here, just negative 2 plus or minus root 57 over 16, that would mean there's really a 1 there. And now they're not all divisible by 2. Only the 2 and the 16 are, and you can't do. It's all 3 or nothing. And so the 1 is not divisible by 2, so we would do nothing. So anyway, we do have a 2 there, so all 3 of them are divisible by 2. So we do it. Divide by 2 leaves a negative 1. Divide by 2 leaves a 1. Divide by 2 leaves an 8. So then that's negative 1 plus or minus 1 root 57 all over 8. And this one here is not needed. 1 times root 57 is just root 57. You don't need that one. This one matters, though. That negative 1, adding 1 or subtracting 1 or negative 1 matters. So there is our final answer. That's actually 2 answers, the plus and the minus option. There it is. Okay, so here we have another x squared equation. Now this one has fractions. When there's fractions, multiply left and right by the common denominator, the LCD. So that's 2. So you're going to multiply by 2, by 2, by 2, by 2, and it'll cancel there. You don't want any fractions. So let's just get rid of that right away. We get x squared plus 8x plus 8 equals 0. Okay, so we got rid of the fractions. Now, Now we just do the normal business. What's the normal business? Quadratic formula. Because we have a 0. So do the quadratic formula. Negative b plus or minus square root of b squared. It's a b there. B squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So what's a, b, and c here? So a is 1, isn't it? It's the number in front. Next, b is 8. C is also 8. So negative b, negative 8 plus or minus the square root of b squared, 8 squared, minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Okay, next comes negative 8 plus or minus square root of 64 minus 32 all over 2. And so that is what? Negative 8 plus or minus square root of 32 over 2, right? 64 minus 32 is 32, right? Kind of bring it up here. So now I got to break that down. Let's see what we got. We got negative 8. Here we go. Come on. Negative 8 plus or minus square root of 32 over 2. So break down that 32. Bring it over here. 32 is 4 times 8. 2 times 2. 2 times 4. 2 times 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 2's. So that's negative 8 plus or minus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 2's is the 32. Now, what happens? 2 2's in, sends a 2 out. 2 2's in, sends another 2 out. They multiply when they come out, right in front of the root. Doesn't go past the root, just goes right to the front of the root. So they're gone, they're gone. So what does that give us? Negative 8 plus or minus 2 times 2 right in front of the root, 4. Square root of 2 all over 2, right? This 1 2's left inside. Right? It's 2 times 2 in the front, 4. Now, can we reduce that any more? Yeah, one more step. If all three of these numbers are divisible, what goes into all three of them? 2, right? So divide by 2 leaves a negative 4. Divide by 2 leaves a 2. Divide by 2 leaves a 1. So we have negative 4 plus or minus 2 root 2 over 1. I divided all three of those by 2. Now, we never leave a 1 on the bottom, so we just say minus 4 plus or minus 2 root 2. There's the 2 answers to number 4. So we started by getting rid of the fractions. Okay, so first step on this one, it's going to be, when you get fractions, multiply by the LCD, right? So what's the LCD? We got a 3 denominator and we got a 12 denominator. So what do 3 and 12 both go into? They both go into 12, don't they? So let's multiply by 12, 12, 12, and 12. Okay, so 3 goes into 12 4 times, so we end up with 4y squared. In the middle, it's just 12y right here, 12y. Here, the 12's cancel, and it's minus 1, and 0 times 12 is 0. So there we go. We got rid of the fractions. So now we know what to do. It's quadratic formula time, negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so a is 4, b is 12, c is negative 1. So negative b, negative 12, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Okay, so let's simplify this thing a little bit. We got minus 12 plus or minus squared. 12 squared is 144. So negative 4 times positive 4 times negative 1. 2 negatives, huh? Positive 16 over 2 times 4 is 8. Okay, let's keep going now. That's a minus 12. I didn't write that very neatly. Okay, so bring it up here. So we get minus 12 plus or minus, what is that, 160 all over 8. Yeah, okay, now we got to break that 160 down on the side. That's 16 times 10, 4 times 4, 2 times 5, 2 times 2, 2 times 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 2s, and a 5. So it becomes minus 12. So if I got room here, I'm kind of running out of room. So minus 12 plus or minus the square root of 5 2s. 1, 2. Wait, better leave a little more room there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 2s, and a 5 all over 8. Okay, so what comes out? 2 for 1 deal. 2 2s in, sends a 2 out. 2 2s in, sends a 2 out. They multiply right in front of the root. They're gone, they're gone. So what do we got? Minus 12 plus or minus right in front of the root. 2 times 2, 4. What's left in the root? 2 times 5 leaves 10 in the root all over 8. Okay, so can we simplify that further? Yeah, all three of these numbers. What goes into 4, 8, and 12? What's the biggest thing? 2 goes into all of them, but 2's not the biggest thing. What's the biggest thing? 4, right? Divide by 4 leaves minus 3. Divide by 4 leaves a 1. Divide by 4 leaves a 2. So then that's minus 3 plus or minus 1 root 10 all over 2. And that 1 is really not needed because 1 times root 10 is just root 10. So there we go. Okay, so here we go. What are we going to do on this one? Well, first off, we just got to begin by just foiling out the left side. That'd be 4x squared minus 2x plus 16x minus 8. The other side, same thing. Multiply 5x plus 15 minus 10. Okay, now gather like terms. So we have 4x squared minus 2x plus 16 is plus 14x. The other side, 15 minus 10 is 5. Okay, and so what should we do now? Remember what we do with x squared with an equal sign? Oops. Try that again up there. What do we do with x squared with an equal sign? Step 1 is get a 0. So we've got to get a 0. So that means we subtract 5x and we subtract 5 from both sides. Why am I doing that? Because I'm trying to get a 0. Right? Wipes it out, 0. We got to get 0 on one side. Other side, 4x squared. What is that? Plus 9x minus 13. So we get a 0. And now, well, I'm going to just dive into the quadratic formula. So negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So a is 4, b is 9, c is negative 13. So negative 9 plus or minus square root of b squared, 9 squared, minus 4 times a times c, which, sorry, my c's don't look very good. That c is minus 13 all over 2a, 2 times 4. All right, bring it up here. What is that? That's minus 9 plus or minus the square root of 81. Now what's going to happen here? Negative times positive times negative. 2 negatives? Positive. 4 times 4 is 16 times 13. Use your calculator. I'm getting 208 all over 8. So that's going to be what? Negative 9. Oops. negative 9 plus or minus the square root of 289. Now, if you the 289, the square root of it's just 17. It's super clean. I don't need to break it down. If you just hit the square root button on 289, it comes out perfectly clean as 17. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means we have two answers here. We have to break them up. Yeah. Now, why? Why do we have to break this one up? Because it doesn't have a root. So I'm going to go minus 9 plus 17 over 8, and minus 9 minus 17 over 8. See, I'm doing the plus option there and the minus option, and the minus option there. See how I'm doing the plus and the minus options? Why am I doing that? If this had a root, if this was like root 2, if it was 17 root 2 or some kind of root was there, and this was 17 root 2, and then there'd be no point in doing that, because if it had a root, then they can't be added or subtracted because they're unlike terms. But it doesn't have a root. So that means I can actually go minus 9 plus 17. If it was 17 root 2, I would just be done. I couldn't go any further. But because it doesn't have a root, they're just both plain numbers. I can add them and subtract them. So minus 9 plus 17, what is that? 8 over 8. That's 1. And what's this one? Minus 9 minus 17? Minus 26 over 8. Reduce that. Divide by 2. Top and bottom, that's minus 13 over... Oops, kind of bumped it there. Minus 13 over 4. So with a comma between them, those are our two answers. 1 and minus 13/4. Again, do you see why I broke it into the 2? Because this was just a plain number. If the root completely vanishes and you just get a plain number, then you need to break it into the two cases, these two cases, because it's just plain numbers in the top. So you can add them and subtract them and get plain number answers. So there it is. Okay, so first step on this one, when you have fractions, is to multiply by the LCD. So what's the LCD? So we have a 14 denominator and a 2 denominator. What do 2 and 14 both go into? They both go into 14, don't they? So I'm going to multiply by 14, and 14. All of them. Okay, so now what happens? Well, 14 and 14 cancel and just get 1y squared equals, and on the other side, minus 14y, these guys. Now what happens here? 2 goes into 14 7 times, and that becomes 49, right? 7 times 7. Okay, is that good? See what happened there? The 2 went into the 14. Left over 7 times 7, 49. Now what do we do? Step 1, get a 0. You got to get a 0. So jump both of these guys to the other side. So we have y squared, or 1y squared if you want, plus 14y plus 49 equals 0. Now, I've been kind of skipping step 2. Step 2 says, oh, my pen's not doing so well there. Try to factor. So step 2 says try to factor. I've been skipping it, going right onto the quad. But this one's factorable, right? You could do the diamond really easy with this one. What multiplies to be 49 adds to be 14. What times what's 49? 7, 7. Both positive to make plus 49 and plus 14. So then that'll factor really nicely, really easily. So you don't need to do the quadratic formula. It's just going to be y plus 7 equals 0. And so then you just set each one equal to their own 0, because if two things multiply times to equal 0, either one could be 0. It's the same thing twice, so just do it once. Move it over, -7. We're done. That's the answer to that problem. Okay, so number 11, the souls live on the corner lot, blah, 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 blah. Who cares? There's the triangle. That's all we need. They want me to, what do they want me? Given the diagram, find how many feet walking distance is saved by cutting across the property instead of walking around the lot. All right, we'll get to that in a minute. Let's just take that triangle and solve for x. So I'm going to go to a fresh screen here. Number 11, I'm going to draw that little triangle. And this is what? 10x plus 2. So 10x plus 2. Okay, so what formula do we use when we have a right triangle? Do you know? For a right triangle, meaning this little right angle right here, that's a 90 degree, that little box in the corner, that means it's a 90 degree right angle. So this is therefore a right triangle. So whenever you have a right triangle, you can use the Pythagorean Theorem. A squared plus b squared is c squared. Now how do you know which one is a, b, and c? Well, a and b don't matter. All that matters is side C. Which side is C? See how this side and this side both hit the right angle? They're A and B. So this side is C. He doesn't touch the right angle. He's called the hypotenuse. He's the one across from the right angle. So he's the C. The other two, it doesn't matter what order. So I'll put the x squared plus x plus 2 squared, or you could do vice versa, whatever. So there's our equation. So what do we do with that thing? Let's do this. So, oops, my little pen. So x squared plus, now x plus 2 squared is x plus 2, right? Whenever there's a 2 on a parenthesis, you got to write 2 of those parentheses, don't you? The other side, 10 squared, it's 100. Okay, so that means I'm going to need to FOIL this side out. Boom, boom. So this is x squared plus 2x, boom, boom, plus 2x plus 4 is 100. Okay. Gather like terms, x squared and x squared. That's 2x squared, right? 1x squared and 1x squared is 2x squared. 2x and 2x is 4x. For this 100, remember we always want to get 0 on the right side, so let's just subtract 100 right now. Gonzo. And so what do we get? Minus 96 equals 0. We always get 0. Whenever we have x squared, we always want to get 0. So let's bring that up here. Oops. So we have 2x squared plus 4x minus 96 equals 0. So here's what I would suggest at this point. Notice that all three of those numbers are divisible by 2. So let's simplify this thing. Let's just divide by 2 all the way across. Even the right side cancels. So what do we got? X squared plus 2x minus 48. Use your calculator if you're a little rusty on that. And 0 over 2, 0 divided by 2 is just 0. All right, so we got to here. Now, remember when we have an x squared equation, we get a 0, which we got a 0. So now, what am I going to try to do? I'm going to try to factor. This one's actually factorable, so I won't have to do the whole quadratic formula thing. If I do the diamond, what multiplies and adds? What multiplies to be minus 48? Adds to be plus 2. What times what is 48? 6 times 8. And remember, the sign on the bottom goes on the bigger. Plus 8 minus 6 makes plus 2. They multiply to be minus 48. So that means this thing factors x minus 6, x plus 8 is 0. So then you know what to do from there, right? You set each of these get their own 0. So x minus 6 all by itself is 0, or x plus 8 all by itself is 0. Jump it over. X is positive 6, jump it over, or x is minus 8. Okay, now, we have two answers. Now, careful, we're not done yet. Those two answers, one of them's bad and the other's good and will lead to a final answer. Let me explain. Whenever you're doing a real life, this is our first word problem in this section, right? Real life problem. You've got to keep one foot in the real world while the other foot is doing the math. So what do I mean real world? Well, look over here. What is x in the real world in this problem? X is the side of a triangle, right? Go back over here. X is how far somebody walks. It's the side right here of the triangle. You can't be negative. Real life, you can't have a distance, right? Can't have the side of this triangle, x, being negative. That's a silly answer. Math, remember, is made up, and sometimes in a real life problem, it goes beyond reality. Math doesn't know that the universe in which we live, you cannot have negative, you can't have a width that's negative. So we throw that answer away. It's just not real. All math knows is that number works in the equation. Math doesn't know reality says you can't have a negative width. So throw that away. So the answer is only, the only x answer that's correct is positive 6. So now go back to the diagram. That means this is 6. This is 6 plus 2, 8, right? Because x, the mystery for x is over. X is 6. So plug 6 in. So this side of the triangle is 6. Plug 6 in here, 6 plus 2. This side of the triangle is 8. So this is a 6 by 8, and then the other side's 10 still, triangle. So what's the answer to the problem? Well, what did they actually ask? Let's get back to the words. I crossed out the words, but we need to pay a little attention to them now. What do they really want from us? Find how many feet of walking distance is saved by cutting across the property instead of walking around the lot. What do they mean? They mean if you want to go from here to there, point A to point B, there's two ways you can do it. You can go the roundabout way, boom, boom, or you can go straight, which is quicker. Well, how far? Well, we learned that x is 6. So this is 6. This is 6 plus 2, 8. So if you go the long way, you're going to go 6 and 8, aren't you? So the long way is 6 plus 8, 14. What's the short way? 10, directly. So this way is 10. This way 6 plus 8, 14. So 14 versus 10. How many feet are saved? 10 versus 14. 4 feet are saved. The walking distance that is saved by cutting across the lot is 4 feet, right? 10 versus 14. You save 4 feet if you go direct. All right, so here we go on number 12. A dog pen, rectangular dog pen, area 300 square feet. The length must be 50 feet longer than the width. Find the dimensions. Okay, that's kind of strange. Okay, so let's do this. The length must be 50 feet longer than the width. So that means one of these is x, the other is x plus 50. Does that make sense? Right, one of them is 50 longer. So x and x plus 50. The two. This is x. This side is x plus 50. How do you find the area? Now let's go to the area. The area of a rectangle. What's the area? The space, all the space in the middle of a rectangle. How do you find the area of a rectangle? It's length times width, right? Do you know that formula? Good one to put on your 3x5 card for the next exam. So the area, which they said is 300, is length times width. It's x times x plus 50. So there's our equation. So let's distribute. Boom, boom. Bring it down here. We get 300 is x squared plus 50x. Let me go to a fresh screen. What number is this? Number 12? So we have, and I'm going to turn it around, x squared plus 50x. I want to put the x on the left here. X squared plus 50x is 300. You can just flip the whole equation. The whole, these are equal to each other. So if you say A equals B or B equals A, you're saying the same thing, right? So I just turn the whole equation around, put the x's on the left. Okay, so how do we solve an x squared equation? What's step one? Get a 0, right? Jump this over, so we get x squared plus 50x minus 300 equals 0. So now what do? I'm going to go, that one doesn't factor. You can fiddle around with it if you want to. It just is not going to factor, so I happen to know. So I'm just going to dive right into the quadratic formula. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, this is a is 1, b is 50, c is minus 300. So we've got negative b, negative 50, plus or minus the square root of b squared, 50 squared minus 4, times a, which is 1, times c, which is minus 300, all over 2a. Okay, so this is minus 50 plus or minus square root of 50 squared is 2500. Negative 4 times positive 1 times negative, 2 negatives, positive 1200, all over 2. So that's, bring it up here. So that's negative 50 plus or minus the square root of, what's that, 3700. Yeah, so I got to break down that 3700 over on the side. So break it down. It's going to be 37 times 100, right? That's what puts the two zeros at the back of a 3700 multiplied by 100. Break down the 100, 10 times 10. I'm actually going to stop there. No need to go to 2525 because there's two 2's. So I've got the 2 for 1 deal right now. So we got minus 50 plus or minus the square root of 37 times 10 times 10 all over 2, right? That was the breakdown of the 3700. 37 times 10 times 10. Okay, now you know the deal. 2 10s in, 1 10 out, they're gone. Again, does everybody see why I didn't break down to 2525 on those 10s? Because as soon as you see a matching pair, like 2 10s, that's all you need. You don't have to keep breaking further. We only do that normally because we haven't found a matching pair yet. But if you find a pair, it's a 2 for 1 deal, right? So as soon as you find a pair, ship one out. No need to go further. So what do we have then? Minus 50 plus or minus 10 root 37 all over 2. Now remember how we can reduce that? We can say all three of these, what goes into all three of those? They're all divisible by 2. 2 goes into all of them. Divide by 2 leaves minus 25. Divide by 2 leaves 5. Divide by 2 leaves 1. So that's minus 25 plus or minus, oops, forgetting about the 5 there, 5 root 37 all over 1. But we don't need to show 1s on the bottom. It's not required. Okay, so now comes the tricky part. How do we finish up this word problem? This is tricky. You think, well, are we done? Those are the two answers? Well, no. Remember, whenever you finish a word problem, the answer's usually not going to be just whatever you got for x. This is x, by the way. These are the two answers for x. This is what x equals. You have to do something. On a word problem, you have to find out what that x means in the real world and see if you've really answered their question. We've not yet. That's x. Now, those are two answers, first off. Let me bring them back here. Get rid of all this stuff for a minute and write what we've got. So we've got x is two answers. So x is negative 25 plus 5 root 37 or negative 25 minus 5 root 37. Okay, so now how do we finish up this question? This answer we just got here, this is x. I just wrote x there. This is x. Right, we're solving for x here. That was an x equation we just solved. So negative 25 plus or minus 5 root 37. Those are two answers. Let's put those back on our original diagram. Here we go. Minus 25 plus 5 root 37 and minus 25 minus 5 root 37. Just separated the two x answers, right? These are two options right there. Two x answers. Remember, when you're done with a word problem, x is not the end of the story usually. You've got to find out what is x mean in a word problem. If this was just, hey, solve this equation, okay, boom, I'm done. But it wasn't. It was, hey, here's a word problem, a real life dog pin, find something. So the x answer is just part of the story. I've got to now take that x and find out what it means in the real world and make sure I've answered the real world question. In a word problem, x is usually not your final answer. You got to then do something with that in a word problem. So let's take it back. Here's the two separate x answers. Now, think about with me, be real. Remember, you want to keep one foot in reality. What is x? What is x? Well, it's this side right here. Okay? Think about this for a minute. This is a negative number and a negative number. This is negative. No way. This one's okay, because they think, well, this one's negative here, yeah, but this part's positive, and the positive is bigger than the negative. So this answer overall is going to be a positive answer. So that one's okay. How do I know this is bigger? I just know the numbers. So this one's positive. So he's a keeper. This other x answer I throw away because it's negative. You can't have a side of a real-life dog pin being a negative length or width. It's impossible. So remember, we got to keep one foot in reality. Negative, just like the last problem, right? When we had the negative 8 answer for like a side of a triangle, which was like a real life walking thing. You can't have negative real life distance, side of a triangle. So throw this negative answer out for the same reason. So we only keep the positive x, keep this answer. Okay, so what do we do with it? Well, what are they asking me for? They're saying find the width and then find the length. Okay. Well, which is which? How do you know which one's bigger? Well, let's read the words carefully. It says the length is 50 longer. So the length is the x plus 50, and the width is the x. The length is the 50 longer. I actually reversed in my little equation. I was just being too casual. This is actually width, and this one's actually length, isn't it? Didn't change anything, but I just want to get it all clear now. So anyway, they want the width. First, what's the width? That's just x. So that would just be minus 25 plus 5 root 7, right? The width is just x. And what is that? What kind of units? Feet. They want you to say feet there. Area is square feet. The area in the middle is how many squares would fill, right? Area, like when you buy carpeting or something like that, it's square units, so square feet. It means how many foot by foot squares would fill up that area. That's what they're saying. How many foot by foot squares? That's area. But length, like how long this is just plain feet, not square feet. There's no squares there, just plain feet. And the length here is going to also be just plain feet. I'll put that in right now. And what is the length? The length, it says right here, the length is x plus 50. The width was just x, but the length is x plus 50. X plus 50. And what is x? This. So minus 25 plus 5 root 37 plus 50. Everybody see that? This is x. This is x plus 50, right? Length is x plus 50. So how do you simplify that? What do you do to clean that up a little bit? Well, minus 25 plus 50, that's plus, not 50, whoops. Minus 25 plus 50 is plus 25 plus 5 root 37. That's it. Positive 25 plus 5 root 37. So that's the length. The width was negative 25 plus 5 root 37. And we're finally done with that long problem. Okay, number 13. A holding pin for cattle must be a square and have a diagonal of length 104. Find the length of a side of the pin. So we have a square, and we have a diagonal. It says the diagonal is 104. And the thing is a square, which means the two sides, or all the sides, are the same. So they're all x, aren't they? A square means all the sides are the same. Diagonal's length 104. So what can we do with that? Well, if we take only half of it, x by 104, then we have a right triangle, don't we? So there's a right triangle. We're going to use the Pythagorean Theorem. Remember, whenever you have a right triangle, you can do the Pythagorean Theorem. A squared plus b squared is c squared. So what does that mean? In our case, x squared plus x squared is 104 squared. So there it is. There's our equation. Let's go to a fresh screen and solve it. So number 13. X squared plus x squared is 104 squared. So what is x squared plus x squared? It's 1x squared and 1x squared. It's 2x squared. 104 squared on your calculator. I'm getting 10,816. Now, this one, when you have x squared and no x to the first power, no x to the first power. Like we just have x squared and numbers. We don't have any x to the first power. Those are easy. You don't have to do the quadratic formula or the factoring. Just get x squared alone and put the root and the plus or minus root. Those are simple. So I'm just going to divide by 2. And I get, these cancel, x squared equals 5,000, what, 408. 5,408. And now just square root it. Square root, plus or minus cancels. So we get x equals, now, I don't think that's good. Try it on your calculator. I'm trying it right now. No, it comes out some ugly decimal. So they want me to break it down. That's a pain. So I got to take this 5408, break it down. I know 2 goes in. That's about all I know. 2's got to go in. That leaves 2704, and I know 2 goes in again. That's going to be 1352, and 2 goes in again. Whoops, come on. 676, and 2 goes in again. 338, and 2 goes in again. To 169. And 169, you try different numbers, it's 13 times 13. All right, what a breakdown. Okay, so we have some room here. So this is x, because the rooting, squaring canceled, is plus or minus the square root of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 2's. 3, 4, 5 2's. And 2 13's. All right, you know the deal. 2 for 1, 2 2's in, sends a 2 out. Oh, by the way, you don't need the negative. Forget the negative, right? Again, this is a real life shape. You can't have negative. So 2 2. Oh, man, I just erased it. All right, let's try it again. There we go. Those are 5. 2 2's in, sends out a 2. 2 13's in, sends out a 13. They're going to times 2 times 2 times 13 on the outside. We're going to get, what's that? 52 squared. What's left on the inside? Just that 2. 52 root 2. Now, did we answer their question? Let's go back. That's x. Remember, on a word problem, x is not the end. It can't be negative. Do you see why I got rid of the negative option? Because x is a side of a square. Can't be negative, so it's just positive. 52 root 2. What do they want? Find the length of the side. Yeah, so that is 52 root 2. That part is just x. 52 root 2. And they want the units. What is it? Meters. So that'd be meters. And now for question B, find the area of the pin. how do you find the area of a rectangle? Remember, let me see if I have room to carve that out right here. Area of a rectangle. What do we do for area of a rectangle? It is length times width. So area is length times width. So what's length and width? Well, this side's x and that side's x. They're both just x. So it's going to be, the area is going to be 52 root 2 times 52 root 2. I mean, they're both x, right? The length and width is x by x. X by x, length and width. So how do you do that? Well, 52 times 52, what's that? That's 2704. And then root 2 is root 4, which is just 2. So the area is 5408. 5408. And that's the area. 5408. And what unit's on that? Area is in square meters. Meters squared, square meters. Area, remember, is square units. You're saying how many squares can fill up the whole area. Square meters. Whereas length is just regular meters. All right, last problem. It's been a very long section. Base of the triangle is 8 more than twice the height. So we're talking about a triangle. And, well, here, we don't know. We're talking about a triangle. And this is the height. This is the base. Base, height, okay. And it says the base is 8 more than twice the height. The base is 8 added to twice the height. So the base is 8 plus twice the height. What's the area? And they're talking about area. What's the area of a triangle? Do you know that formula, the area of a triangle? It's good to put on your 3x5 card if you don't know it. A half times base times height. The area is 49. So plug in 49 is a half base. And what do you put in for b? What is b? Base. Right there. 8 plus 2h. So that's base. And then the height goes over there. Is that good to there? Now, this problem is tricky. What do we always do when we have fractions? So when we have fractions, we multiply by LCD. LCD. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. So here it cancels. 2 times 49, 98. Now you might wonder, do I need to put the 2 in here or here? No. No, whenever you do something to the outside, when you got parentheses, when you do something to the outside, whatever you do out here will eventually distribute in. So you've really done it to the whole right side by just doing it to the front of the parenthesis, because it'll eventually distribute in. So we don't need to do any more. And we canceled it out. That's nice. Let's distribute that in. So 98 is 8h plus 2h squared. So, hey, notice they all have 2 in common. Let's just divide that out right now and make things simpler. Divide by the 2 and we'll get, we'll get 49 equals, 2 goes into 8 4 times, 4h plus, these cancel, h squared. Like that. Okay, so let's go to a fresh screen and finish solving for h. I'm going to flip it around, so we're going to have h squared plus 4h is 49. H squared plus 4h is 49. All right, you know the game plan by now. Get a 0. Jump this over. h squared plus 4h equals 49. Okay, let's factor it. It doesn't factor. That's not going to factor. Let's do the quadratic formula. Negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So a is 1, b is 4, c is minus 49. Let's plug the stuff in there. Negative b, negative 4, plus or minus the square root of b squared, 4 squared minus 4, times a, times c, all over 2a. And what do we got? Negative 4 plus or minus square root of, what's that, 16. Negative times positive times negative, 2 negatives is positive. What's 4 times 49? 196. All over 2. So that's negative 4 plus or minus the square root of, 212 all over 2. Bring it up. So negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 212 all over 2. Got to break down that 212. You can hit the square root button. I don't think it's clean, so got to break it down. That's 2 times 106. That's 2 times 53. I think that's as far as we're going to go. So, yeah, nothing goes into 53. So, all right, so what do we got then? We got negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 2 times 2 times 53 all over 2. And then 2 2's in, ships 1 2 out, and they're gone. And so we have minus 4 plus or minus 2 root 53 over 2. Can we simplify that? Yeah, all 3 of these numbers, what goes in all 3 of those? 2, huh? Divide by 2 leaves negative 2, divide by 2 leaves a 1, divide by 2 leaves a 1. Negative 2 plus or minus 1 root 53 over 1. You never need to show 1s on the bottom, so forget about that. And 1 times root 53 is just root 53. Now, again, that's what is that? What is that, x? No, that was h. Remember, we originally solved an h equation, so that's h equals. Now, let me write that a little neater. That's h equals. Now, those are 2 options, aren't they? H is minus 2 plus root of 53, or minus 2 minus. I'm going to do the 2 options. That one, forget it, because that's negative. No way height can be negative in the real world. Remember, whenever you're doing a word problem, you got to keep real. That's a negative number. A negative minus a negative, the negative, that no way. That's a negative number, and subtract more, so it's negative. No way height can be negative. So this is the only actual height. Is that all they want is height? I think they want something else. So the height would be negative 2 plus root 53, negative 2 plus root 53. And what were the units on that? It was centimeters, so that'd be centimeters. And then the base of the triangle, what's the base? Well, the base is 8 plus 2h. Remember that? So we got to go back to that. So the base is 8 plus 2h. So that's 8. I don't know if I'm going to be able to have room for this. So that equals 8 plus 2 times h. And what is h? This is h here. Negative 2 plus root 53 equals, I'm going to distribute that. So it's 8 minus 4 plus 2 root 53, right? See that 2 went boom, boom. Minus 4 plus 2 root 53. Then we can clean that up with one more step. 8 minus 4 is 4, plus 2, root 53. That's what the base must be, 4 plus 2, root 53. So 4 plus 2. And boy, my pen's just flipping out here. Just won't write. There it is, 4 plus 2 root 53. I don't know what's going on with my pen. Okay, so there's the base. That is also in centimeters. So 4 plus 2 root 53. There's the answer, long section.